business. And finally, a hippie type who can correct us ever so gently, please, if we are wrong. Mr. Louis Yablonsky is a sociologist who studied at Rutgers and took his doctorate,
which is the Hindu benevolent word. And by getting together and creating love, I think it's a great force, and at least in allowing you to demonstrate in the United States against Daley, who is, it's Al Capone, you know. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
Beware of false prophets who come unto you dressed in sheep's clothing, and underneath they are.
Hey, you're watching. I don't want to start with you're watching because watch is in the title. God damn it. Okay. This is Last Watch with Bernard and Tony. Today's show is episode 6 of season 5 of Better Call Saul, Wexler versus Goodman.
Yeah, and this to me was an incredible show. But this is our first.
Hey, you're watching. I don't want to start with you're watching because watch is in the title. God damn it. Okay. This is Last Watch with Bernard and Tony. Today's show is episode 6 of season 5.
The topic tonight is the hippies, an understanding of whom we must, I guess, acquire or die painfully. We certainly should make considerable progress in the next hour because we have with us a professional student of hippies, as also someone who is said to have started the whole Beat Generation business, and finally a hippie type who can correct us ever so gently, please, if we are wrong. Mr. Louis Yablonsky is a sociologist who studied at Rutgers and took his doctorate at New York University and teaches at San Fernando State College in California, where he is chairman of his department. His first book, which focused on teenage gang life and drug addiction, prepared him for his magnum opus, which is called The Hippie Trip, a first-hand account of the beliefs and behavior of hippies in America. Mr. Jack Kerouac over here became famous when his book On the Road was published.
How much cocaine?
It seemed to be preaching a life of disengagement, making a virtue out of restlessness.
Are you going to
the irony is that when the book was belatedly published in 1958, 7 years after it was written, Mr. Kerouac had fought his way out of the Beat Generation and is now, if not exactly orthodox, at least a regular practicing novelist whose 13th book, The Vanity of Delos, is widely regarded as his best. Mr. Ed Sanders is a musician, a poet, and a polemicist. He is one of the Fugs, a widely patronized combo. He has published 4 books of poetry and has vigorously preached pacifism for a number of years. I should like to begin by asking Mr. Sanders whether we have serious terminological problems. For instance, are you a hippie, Mr. Sanders? And if not, wherein not?
Well, I'm not exactly a hippie. I mean, I have certain sentiments for that, quote, hippie movement, unquote. I would say that I'm different from the hippies in that I would have a more radical political solution to the problems of this part of the century. And I have my roots more strongly in, say, the classical tradition and in poetry and literature, rather than in dope and street sex.
This you think...
we love dope
and you published that magazine called what?
Look at him.
Called Gutter Expletive, a magazine of the arts.
Well, now, do I understand from this that we are supposed to make the inference that the hippies don't have a highly developed political schedule, a highly developed political ideology?
Is it the problem with the terms like hippie is that they have a definition foisted on them by the media, and that the word hippie is has been limited by the necessities of the type of journalists that promote it. And, you can't rely on the name hippie to include a human being, everything about a particular human being.
CIA.
So it's a bad term, I think, because it has no meaning. You might think of hippopotamus, and I mean, it's like, it has no other connections, spiritual and emotional, like say the Beat generation title had. It had other implications. But the word hippie, you immediately think of. You don't have any good connections.
I
Sometimes.
kind of disagree with that. I spent last year traveling around the country, various
He's got good
communes and
shoes.
various Haight-Ashbury, Lower East Side, various city scenes, and there was an identifiable, I define a hippie as a rather, generally a young person, in several
Bad
categories. There's
haircut.
kind of a
All that.
priestly type. I would include Allen Ginsberg and Tim Leary and individuals like
shaved
that
like
in that
you.
category.
You don't give
People
like you.
searching for some loving solutions to society's ills, trying to tune into the cosmos, whatever that means. We can explore
We're
that.
bored of the shit
Generally
you're
using
giving us.
psychedelic drugs, and then there's a
No,
whole
it's not
cadre
the
of
drugs,
individuals
dude.
who
You missed
whom
the
I
hippie.
termed novices, who are attempting to achieve a certain transcendental state. And there's a lot of teeny bopper kids who are sort of
Teeny
hanging
bopper
on. Then there's
kids?
some
What the
ancient
fuck?
folks like Kerouac here who.
What do you mean
Why couldn't
ancient?
you keep quiet while I was talking? I'll keep quiet when you talk.
Yeah, yes, that's a
No,
fair
I-
enough,
Oh
isn't
my
it?
God.
What?
I think that's fair enough, your
You
request.
said
Can't we
cadre,
all just get
Oh, I'm
along?
sorry.
Spanish
I
word.
apologize.
Right.
My semantics aren't.
And I showed
Really
my
not.
thumbs down to Ginsberg over there in the back.
Oh, he's a nice fella.
Yeah, we'll throw him to the lions.
Well, what about it, Mr. Kerouac? You're exercised about something, or by something. What
Restless
is
is
it
true.
that,
You had the right word. Restless is right.
Well, what is it that that in your judgment distinguishes the hippie movement from, for instance, or
He's
simply a
more
movement
opiate
question
addicted
political
than any hippie
movement?
I've ever
No,
known.
I interrupted your sentence. Sentence.
Yeah, I say what distinguishes the hippie movement from simply an orthodox, radical, say,
Nothing.
Adamite movement?
Adamite.
Mm,
You
there
mean
was a
Adam, Adam and Eve, or atom?
Adam. As in Adam and Eve.
What's an Adam and Eve? What's Adamite? Where they all wear their hair long, layers, in caves?
Yeah, and sort of back to nature and
Well, that's all right.
exclusive concern for
They might
one's
have
own
to in due time after
pleasure.
the atom
Trying to get to the
bomb.
roots.
Hey, that was good, wasn't it?
Good all the time, boy.
Give that man a drink. Now, Jack, Mr. Kerouac, what I want to ask is this. To what extent do you believe that the Beat generation is related to the hippies?
Oh, they're
What do they have in common? Was this
The
an
Beats.
evolution from the one to the
It's
other?
just the older ones.
Yeah.
See, I'm 46 years old. These kids are 18. It's the same movement, which is apparently some kind of Dionysian movement in late civilization,
Mm-hmm.
and which I did not intend any more than I suppose Dionysius did, or whatever his name was. But although I'm not Dionysius the Areopagite, I should have been.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
There's a wannabe.
No, it's just a movement which is supposed to be licentious,
Yes.
but it isn't really.
Well, now, licentious in what
No,
respect?
The
Right,
hippies are
dude.
good kids. They're better than the Beat. The Beats, see, Ginsberg and I, and, well, Ginsberg.
The Beats.
We're 40, we're all in our 40s,
Mhm.
and we started this, and the kids took it up and everything. But a lot of hoodlums, and communists jumped on our backs.
Mhm.
Well, on my back, not his.
Who's the communist?
Ferlinghetti jumped on my back and turned the idea that I had that the Beat generation was a generation of beatitude and pleasure in life and tenderness,
It was a
But they called it
personality.
in the papers beat mutiny, beat insurrection. Words I never used.
Mhm.
Being a Catholic, I believe in order, tenderness, and piety.
Well, then your point was that a meeting, that a movement which you conceived as relatively pure has become ideologized and misanthropic and generally
A movement that was considered
objectionable.
what? No, a movement that was considered what?
Pure.
Yes, it was pure in my heart.
Hmm. What about that, Mr. Blanc? Do you see that as having happened somewhere between
Well,
the beats
so
and the
fucking
hippies?
I think there's
As Cuban
in
cigar.
early '67, going back to around, I suppose, '64 or '5,
64.
there were a lot of people trying to kind of return to sort of an Indian style of life or relate to the land
India.
differently,
Not
trying
Indian.
to love each other and communicate, be more open with each other. And I think recently it's taken a turn in
That's where we
a
get our
violent
syphilis,
direction.
by the way.
A lot of responsibility, I think, is due to drugs like methadone, the amphetamines, and perhaps the overuse, because it's been around for quite a while now, of drugs like LSD.
How about the herring?
What is herring? Is that kind of a drug?
It's a cherry herring.
No.
Kerouac still
Sour cream
is
and
out
herring.
of style. He's still on alcohol, which is
I'm on alcohol
There are
and
other
another drug
drugs now.
How about that, Miss Sanders? Is that out of style?
Well, you mentioned misanthropic and objectionable. I think that
Misanthropic.
many of the so-called misanthropic elements of this generation are due to the war, and that you have a
CIA,
surly
man.
generation of draft-eligible
CIA.
but literate and
Fucking
articulate
amen.
people who are
CIA.
confronted with the hideous probability of having to go
Yes,
to an Asian land war, and that
everybody else.
and that so they have to go to war, and they're faced with this looming, gloomy future, and that rather than die in Vietnam, they'd rather prepare themselves to articulate a lifestyle in the streets and in the open that really reflects something they really want to do, rather than this other thing they have to do later on they don't really believe in and they will do because push
And
comes
they're
to shove.
forced to do.
Most kids go to war. You know.
Of course, the
Kids
trouble
go
with
to
that
war.
is it doesn't account, for instance, for the restlessness in, say, Paris, where they don't have that particular problem, does it?
Well, that's the up against the wall
Daniel
syndrome.
Cohn
I mean,
says
Smack him.
Mr. Sanders, I'm interested in trying to pin this point down because a lot of us have heard that the restlessness of so much of American youth, which has contributed to the growth of the hippie movement, has to do with the trauma of Vietnam. But then all of a sudden, a while ago in France, what seemed like the entire student population exploded, even though that particular provocation was singularly, in fact conspicuously, absent, France having been officially very pro-North Vietnam, very anti-American. Now, how do you account for that, and has it caused you to perhaps look into more generic sources of
I think
disorder?
it's the nefarious occurrence in French civilization of Madame de Gaulle,
Madame de Gaulle?
because she has exercised a noxious influence on French television, sitting up and personally censoring it. And I think, it's absolutely true. And I think that when you have a type of obnoxious matriarchy as that's evident in France, plus a encrusted, boorish university structure, and the old man himself. And who wouldn't? I mean, there's the whole thing to God. There's a huge structure there to revolt against.
So Madame de Gaulle is roughly equal to Vietnam.
She's
mutatis
Madame New.
mutandis. Professor Yablonsky, what would you say if a student of yours told you that?
Well, I think in the United States, the hippies, with all the tantamount difficulties of defining them, come from the middle, upper
Stop
classes, upper
labeling.
socioeconomic situation. And these are generally people who have tasted the best that American society seems to have to offer. They
Who
have
can
access to all
avoid
the
the
goodies,
subject much
and they're turned
more?
off by it. They feel that it's kind of a plastic society. There's no room for political change. I'm talking about the pure hippie. The pure hippie isn't particularly involved in politics.
Well,
He's
you're
sort of
you're
retreats
freaking
from that.
speaking Hitler.
He's withdrawn from it. And he's involved in, I mentioned the term cosmic consciousness before. There is an experience one seems to get under LSD that a lot of people talk about as putting them in touch with all things, with all people. And there's an effort, kind of an extremist effort at love that seems to dominate the hippie scene, and a retreat from politics.
Princeton,
Well,
whatever,
is there a
losers.
causal relation between their going,
Hello.
they're adopting these
name
attitudes
is
and the Vietnam War,
Mr. Ford.
or do you reject
I'd love to
the
tell
Vietnam
you
War
about
as the proximate cause
I think
of this movement?
the Vietnam War is part of it.
Just so we
But if there had been no Vietnam
Princeton
War, we might have had
is-
the identical thing. Is that your point?
Well, I think there's a lot of, there's no single cause for a particular movement. I
Yeah,
think
no
part of it may have been the
it's
assassination of
political.
JFK. I think people on the left
Told you.
felt that through the establishment, through political devices,
Fox.
the society
Oh,
could
really?
move in
It's up
other
against-
directions. And then
In what direction was it moving in 1963 that was pleasing to them?
there was a movement towards
That's not
greater
totally-
welfare programs, towards
This is old.
resolving in
Not
some
that
ways the
old.
civil rights issue. There seemed to be some hope. And then this seemed to be snapped off, and a lot of kids who went to
But
Mississippi.
If I may
and,
say so, precisely the movements that didn't get passed in 1961, 62, and 63, of the kind you just enumerated, were passed in 64, 65, 66. So there would seem to be almost a negative correlation between the civil rights legislation and welfare passages
Well,
and the growth of the movement.
Well,
I think if you
passages
cross-compare the limited JFK administration and the rather lengthy LBJ administration, I think the LBJ situation has kind of been going through the
Yeah.
motions of doing something. And there was a certain, I feel,
were trying,
and a lot of
Johnson
people have
and the
told me
rest
this,
of them.
spirit afoot in the country. And there seemed to be a bit of a revival with Bobby Kennedy. And here again, and to some extent, the
Did he get
McCarthy
assassinated too?
involvement.
Kennedy?
And I think a lot of
Yeah,
people are
Bobby was
turned
brother,
off from the
right?
political establishment because they don't see any hope for changing it. That they use terms like plastic and more severe words about it, and they've disengaged. They're uncommitted to it.
How about that, Mr. Kerouac? Does that make sense to you in terms of...
I lost
Your
the
own-
entire train of
Wait,
thought.
wait.
Well, the train of thought has to do
This
with
guy's higher than a kite.
whether in the last few years
He's
people
been
have
smoking
ceased
a
to look
Cuban
at
cigar the
the
whole
political
fucking night.
processes as
No way.
profitable in terms of bringing on the kind of world they want to live in. And maybe that has something to do with the
What do
assassination
you
of
guys
Kennedy,
say?
that kind of thing.
No, that was an accident. I refer back to Count Leo Tolstoy, who wrote War and Peace, you know, Leo Tolstoy, who said that at one time the hourglass, that the sand is coming down from one top of the
Trip.
hourglass
Yeah,
onto the other.
And he's against the hippies,
And that will
he's
be the end
against,
of war.
he's on his own
I think
trip.
that war will be over fairly soon. Although I don't know for sure.
I don't know
That's
for
what Tolstoy
sure.
said. And he
Well,
was the guy who
yeah, I
taught
know.
Gandhi in Thoreau,
Yeah,
Henry David
Shut
Thoreau.
him down.
yeah. Told him a lot of foolish things. What I'm
No,
saying.
but I didn't get the full context of your question.
Well, the full context of the question is, are a significant number of Americans precisely at an age when we enunciated the Great Society,
Oh, great society.
He's about to
i.e. the
explode.
society that was actually going to introduce politics
As
as
far as I'm
relevant in
concerned-
everything.
He had to grab his
Are
own
they
brain.
disillusioned, and does this have to do with the growth of the hippie movement?
In the first place, I think that the Vietnamese War is nothing but a plot between the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese, who are cousins, to get jeeps in the country.
To get jeeps in the country.
And as for
They're not very good plotters, are they?
they got a lot of jeeps. I think they're
But
pulling
they-
the wool over our eyes,
they
and we're
cannot
little
be.
American lambs.
They turned out to be more expensive than Sears Roebuck Jeeps,
Yes,
didn't they?
but that's what I really think there. As for the Russian takeover of Czechoslovakia, that showed the world what they're like, what the communists are really like. They're really fascists.
Well, yeah, I
Okay.
guess everybody doubted that except maybe Mr. Sanders, right?
Can you fucking explain yourself?
I think it was a terrible thing, you know. And if I were in Czechoslovakia and a
Julia.
Czechoslovakian student, I'd be putting out an underground newspaper and doing my best to
Called what?
called gutter expletive.
He's so bent stoned.
Well, since
That's
you
still not- all
since you
fucking
aren't in
night.
Czechoslovakia, Mr. Sanders, what do
Bitch,
you
you
consider it
about
appropriate
dead,
to do in the
please.
United States?
during the presidential campaign.
Yeah, by way of protest against the Czechoslovakian.
You won't
Oh,
find this.
well, I recommend sit-ins in front of the
So I had to
Russian
put it
mission
out there.
to vigorously and more forcefully yet non-violently to witness against it. And I would advocate writing articles and advocate
Julian.
maybe going to Czechoslovakia. I mean, the Fugs are going to Europe in a couple of weeks, and we may
You gonna
just
bring your carbines?
we're going to the Essen Song Festival in Germany. We just may try to freak across to Czechoslovakia to visit Kafka's
Yeah.
birthplace, I guess. Was he born in Prague? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we may go have a homage to Kafka with with our band.
Well, do you draw any generalities on the basis of the behavior of the Soviet Union, which
This guy is
instruct
so
you
calm.
in assessing other political
He's so
situations?
Like Mayor Daley in Chicago.
And what are those?
Well, those are that when you attempt to essentially peacefully gather together to press a point about a war or about a freedom or about freedom of journalism, that when you're confronted with people like the Soviet leaders and like the leaders in Chicago, namely Mayor Daley and Mr. Stahl and Mr. Barger of the Chicago municipal office, that you're confronted with essentially the same position. You're allowed, you're clubbed, you're maced, you're gassed, you're freaked, zapped, pushed over. If you're an old lady, you're thrown through a plate glass window. If you're a cripple, you're thrown against a street light. If you're a peaceful, long-haired, loving protester, you're smashed and knocked down. If you're a cameraman, you're bricked and your camera's destroyed, and your blood is splattered all over you. I mean, it's a nefarious scene, and there's all kinds of correlations. And what's the only what the lesson you would draw would be to prepare yourself, and in the sense of, if you're nonviolent like I am, and if you believe in pacifism, you will attempt to create a body of love and light so that thing can't happen. That there'll be so many loving people there that you will have a festival of life and all its attributes, and you can do that by praying together, by loving together, by Alan was singing Aum in the streets, which is the Hindu benevolent word. And by getting together and creating love, I think it's a great force, and at least in allowing you to demonstrate in the United States against Daley, who is it's Al Capone. I mean, it's,
Yeah, sure.
Beware of false prophets who come unto you dressed in sheep's clothing, and underneath they are ravening wolves.
But who's that?
I guess that's it. All of it.